Hello everybody, welcome back to Language Litigation and Integration Part 87, Immunity Durability. We review a lot of COVID stuff today, talk about 3 different studies, the most recent guidance, or not guidance, but the most recent report from the CDC, as well as some podcast reactions relevant to COVID, and then we'll finish up with some random talking points. But basically we're going to review the data of how the durability of immunity. Remember, I've said, and I totally agree with, the measure of your immunity level is simply when you get reinfected with anything. But the first study, COVID-19, the most recent one from January 19th, 2022 from the CDC. COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations by COVID-19, vaccination status, and previous COVID-19 diagnosis in the states of California and New York from May to November 2021. Reading the relevant conclusions or analysis. By the week beginning October 3rd, compared with COVID-19 case rates among unvaccinated persons without a previous COVID-19 diagnosis, case rates among vaccinated persons without a previous COVID-19 diagnosis were 6.2-fold in California and 4.5-fold New York lower. Again, right off the bat, again, the study is written horribly, right? Don't start in the negative. Like, I had to reread this thing like 3 or 4 times to figure out what it's trying to say. People need to work on their literacy so tremendously bad. Specific scientists, writers. Rates were substantially lower among both groups with previous COVID-19 diagnosis, including 29-fold California and 14.7-fold lower New York among unvaccinated persons with a previous diagnosis, and 32.5% in California and a 19.8-fold lower in New York among vaccinated persons with a previous diagnosis of COVID-19. Again, horribly written. During the same period, compared with hospitalization rates among unvaccinated persons without a previous COVID-19 diagnosis, hospitalization rates in California followed a similar pattern. These results demonstrate that vaccination protects against COVID-19 and related hospitalization, and that surviving a previous infection protects against reinfection and related hospitalization. Importantly, infection-derived protection was higher after the Delta variant became predominant. That's the most important part. A time when vaccine-induced immunity for persons declined because of immune evasion and an immunological warning. A couple cited references. Continues on. Although the epidemiology of COVID-19 might change as new variants emerge, vaccination remains the safest strategy for averting future SARS-CoV-2 infections, hospitalizations, long-term sequelae, and death. Primary vaccination, additional doses, and booster doses are recommended for all eligible persons. Additional future recommendations for vaccine doses might be warranted as the virus and immunity levels change. So what this study shows is that your previous infection has had a stronger durability of immunity against Delta. And then additionally in the article it says natural immunity seems to last about 13 months. So you're talking again about factors of 6.2-fold and 4.5-fold lower for the vaccinated against the unvaccinated, and then substantially lower for previous COVID-19 diagnosis of 29-fold and 14.7-fold California to New York respectively. So again, that makes complete sense to me. Right, you get a vaccine, you have an antibody response, hopefully those antibodies stay on in your bloodstream or at least get integrated into your T cells or B cells, T cells specifically. But again, the memory is not the correct word there. But right, you're exposed longer. Right, if you have a vaccine and you have some symptoms for 12 hours, that's when your body's generating the antibodies. If you have COVID-19 and it lasts for 3, 4, 5 days, you have a higher viral load. So it makes tremendous amount of sense to me that natural immunity is more durable than vaccine immunity. But then again, I can already hear Brett Weinstein and Heather Hang and Ben Shapiro be like, see, I told you. No, it's still not the right conclusion, right? Because the point is of your risk factors of myocarditis, pericarditis, hospitalization, and death is like 10, 15, 25-fold without the vaccine. So the length of exposure is certainly why the natural vaccine seems to be stronger. And again, it seems to last about 13 months. And we'll get to another study where it says the natural immunity specifically to Delta was about 4 to 6 months. So it's about the same immunity waning period as the vaccine itself. So to me, not 0% surprising, makes total sense with, again, longer exposure time and higher viral load. Next study. So I've heard several references to a study out of Israel, so I pulled that one up, and I don't even have, it says the abstract, I don't have the title of the study. But it's an Israeli study with about 30,000 cases. It was very popular and was released on August 24th, 2021, and it has not been peer-reviewed. And I will tell you why I don't give a fuck that it is not peer-reviewed. Background. Reports of waning vaccine-induced immunity against COVID-19 have begun to surface. With that, the comparable long-term protection conferred by previous infection with SARS-CoV-2 remains unclear. Methods. We conducted a retrospective observational study, again just looking at reinfection rates, but to me, for the conclusion they're trying to draw, or the data or the insight they're trying to draw, this is completely fine. Again, my metric, the metric that matters, do you get reinfected? Don't care if it's peer-reviewed, don't care if it's observational. Most of the time I would care if it's observational. I think most of those studies are absolute bullshit, just mining data. But this is a very direct question. Do you get reinfected? Yes. That's pretty much all of your confounding variables. Retrospective observational study comparing 3 groups. 1, SARS-CoV-2 naive individuals who received a 2-dose regimen of the biotech Pfizer mRNA vaccine. 2, previously infected individuals who had not been vaccinated. And 3, previously infected and a single-dose vaccinated individuals. 3 multivariate logistic regression models were applied. In all models, we evaluated 4 outcomes: SARS-CoV-2 infection, symptomatic disease, COVID-19 related hospitalization, and death. So that sounds like 3. I guess hospitalization and death, I guess is 4. But infection, symptomatic disease, hospitalization, death. The follow-up period of June 1 to August 14, 2021, when the Delta variant was dominant in Israel. Results. SARS-CoV-2 naive vaccines had a 13.6-fold increased risk factor for breakthrough infection with the Delta variant compared to those previously infected, when the first event, infection or vaccination, occurred during January and February of 2021. The increased risk was significant for symptomatic disease as well, when allowing the infection to occur at any time before vaccination, from March 2020 to February 2021. Evidence of the waning natural immunity was demonstrated. Key factor there, waning natural immunity, again 0% surprising, both natural immunity and vaccine-induced antibody responses are certainly waning, like anything that has ever been in biological systems ever, or physical systems ever, was demonstrated. Those SARS-CoV-2 naive vaccines had a 5.6-fold, and they have a range, increased risk for breakthrough infection, and a 7.3-fold increased risk for symptomatic disease. SARS-CoV-2 naive vaccines were also at a greater were also at a greater risk for COVID-19 related hospitalization compared to those who were previously infected. Conclusion. This study demonstrated that the natural immunity confers longer lasting and stronger protection against infection, symptomatic disease, and hospitalization caused by the Delta variant of SARS-CoV-2 compared to the BNT162b2 2-dose vaccine-induced immunity. Individuals who were both previously infected with SARS-CoV-2 and given a single dose of vaccine gained additional protection against the Delta variant. And this is the one, my notes, natural immunity seems to last 4 to 6 months before Omicron was part of the picture. That was also another fact stated by either the researchers in the study or in the article. But again, none of this is surprising to me. Again, remember that the risk, again, people are going to be like, see, natural immunity works better. So again, you're going to go expose yourself to the higher rates of hospitalization, higher rates of death, higher this, just to get a higher viral load. Again, the reckless behavior is still not getting the vaccine. So again, none of this is surprising to me. I literally last 2, 3, 4 videos I said, if you get the vaccine, you avoid severe disease, then you get the Omicron infection. Again, these are to Delta but I'll talk about mutations and variants. But and then you get a mild case of Omicron, and that's your best protection. And yeah. But again, people will say again, you have better natural immunity, so just do dumb shit the whole time. And again, this is how I spent 20 years of my life being denied the ability to do scientific research. That was the end of that study. And again, most people here would say, the criticism of this study says it's not peer-reviewed, it's observational, it's not double-blind controlled, as a way to say this is not accurate data. Because again, people want to, I am 100% for the legality of vaccine mandates. Because it's the initial reckless behavior. But the not being peer-reviewed and the methodology of this study seemed completely consistent for the question they were trying to answer. So the third study, and again, these are all related to Delta. I thought I saw one comparing basically Omicron to Delta, Omicron, but couldn't find that again, so I don't know if I'm just misremembering or what. But report 49, growth, population, and distribution and immune escape of Omicron in England, December 16, 2021. Relevant information: to estimate the impact of Omicron on vaccine effectiveness, VE, for symptomatic infection, we use conditional Poisson regression to estimate the hazard ratio of being an Omicron case using SGTF definition compared with Delta, restricting our analysis to symptomatic cases and matching by day, region, 10-year age band, sex, and ethnicity. We found a significant increased risk of an Omicron case compared to Delta for those with vaccine status: AstraZeneca, 2 weeks post-dose, 2PD, abbreviated as P2D, post-dose 2, Pfizer, 2 plus W, PD2, AstraZeneca, 2-dose, or post-3 dose, and Pfizer post-3 dose vaccine states with hazard ratios of 1.86, 2.68, 4.32, and 4.07, all with a confident interval of about 95%, where PD3 states were categorized by dose 1/2 vaccine used. Again, just the third dose is half of the original potency of the vaccine. Depending on the Delta vaccine efficacy, or effectiveness, estimates used 10, there's a bunch of, this is a science paper citing other stuff. These estimates translate into Omicron vaccine effectiveness estimates between 0 and 20%. Basically saying the crossover immunity of stuff against Delta to Omicron is between 0 and 20%. Post-dose 2 in between 55% and 80% for post-dose 3 against Omicron. So 0 to 20 for 2 doses and 55 to 80% against reinfection with Omicron after the 3rd dose. Consistent with other estimates. Similar estimates were obtained using genotype data, albeit with greater uncertainty. Again, this is 0% surprising. When I referenced, it depends, how much your immunity to a given variant is going to depend on how much the mutation has changed from the base strain that it is. And so I just have future variant immunity will be proportional to base mutation. Again, really, nobody can control that. That's not the CDC, that's not Biden, that's not Xi Jinping, that's not Vlad Daddy. Vladimir Putin, call him Vlad Daddy. But that's just biology. So I don't have any good data on likeliness of future mutations, but again, all future variants to me will be less potent, maybe more equal or the same transmissibility. I do think we will see the Omicron and overall caseload start to plummet now. Clearly your best protection is your 3-dose vaccine and then getting infected, but ideally you'd just get the 3-dose vaccine and not get infected. But that's why, again, length of exposure, viral load is 100%. And my biggest point is to, again, vaccines have some waning efficacy, so no mandates. Natural immunity has some protection, so it's the best thing ever. And then they both wane after 6 to 12 months for sure. So it's, again, just normal biology. It's nothing surprising here about any of this. Again, I picked the major studies, the one that people could even think that, I would be against as someone who, again, knows that vaccine mandates are completely fucking legal and should be implemented. But again, if people want to do stupid shit, again, I'm not. If you go die, like actually, to speed up the process, go take the Brian Laundrie challenge. Go play in traffic with under a carpet at night so nobody can see you. Just lay down, take a nap there. Go swimming with alligators. Maybe be a nice meal for somebody. And forget COVID. The reason I say that is because it's reckless behavior. The reason I couldn't live a single day of my 20-year life is because I see a bunch of scientists doing basically scientific denial in the name of science, and they're just too incompetent to know that's what they're doing. So we're gonna respond to some talking points related to COVID, some random talking points, and that will be it for today. I do have some more stories, but this will be a pretty long episode as is. So not a podcast, just a tweet. I'm actually not on Twitter, but during my research, my actual research with actual data and actual studies and actual conclusions that are correct, I came across a wonderful individual named Martin Kulldorff. He's an epidemiologist, biostatistician at Harvard Medical School. But he quoted the Israeli study, and this one, again, this had about 30,000 participants, the one that was not peer-reviewed. Again, I don't see that as a problem in any case for this study. But he tweeted, in Israel, vaccinated individuals had 27 times higher risk of symptomatic COVID infection compared with those with natural immunity from prior COVID-19 disease. The 27 times higher wasn't in the abstract, it was in the study, but that wasn't the data that I just read from the study. With a 95% interval. No COVID deaths were in either group. And then that was a quote tweet of himself, and then he says, prior COVID disease, parentheses, many working class, provides better immunity than vaccines, parentheses, many professionals. So then huge jump. Here's precisely and exactly what I'm saying the conclusions are wrong and retarded. Comma. So vaccine mandates are not only scientifically nonsense, false, just holistically false. The first part, I don't care about a scientist talking about the legality of mandates. I don't care about, again, I have no respect for these scientists. They're demonstrably incompetent every single time they open their mouth. But scientific nonsense, comma, they're also discriminatory and unethical. It's unethical to have people not exposed to 10 times higher hospitalization, which again, the 2-dose vaccines are still 86 to 95% effective against that. 86 to 95%. If you had an 85 to 95% chance to win the lottery, you're going to go play it. So vaccine mandates are unethical. It is unethical to provide proper ethics for health. Martin Kulldorff. He works for Harvard, medical school professor. I'm sure he's probably raising some money at some, 10,000 forward multiple on revenue for his bioethics company that's going to do big breakthroughs. But he says they're not scientifically nonsense. And again, I have $1 million offer for anybody who wants to talk to me publicly at any major university about anything in science. The one thing you can't be is an actually polymath. Because I don't say I'm a polymath. I prove things in every known discipline, and I've created more subjects than exist. So if you want to play science, again, I get that ticket on the motherfucking internet. Martin Kulldorff, I'm sure can't pay his fucking rent. But again, this is the example of just jumping to completely wrong conclusions. They are effective. They 100% are effective. And again, it's the reckless behavior. To get natural immunity, you have to get infected first. Which you're way more likely to be if you're unvaccinated, to get fucking way more severe disease. I'm talking to children here again. Then I obviously popped onto the Dark Horse number 112 podcast. This was the actual podcast, not the question and answer session. They're on Odyssey and YouTube, and I have, how about OnlyFans? It's about the only thing I could possibly watch Heather Hang on. It's probably OnlyFans. But again, natural immunity, I went through the data, and just going through their conversation, anything that jumped out. They talk about corruption versus incompetence, and all of these weird people think that the world is very corrupt. And again, I have been scapegoated at the highest level of the species. Corruption exists, but it's very limited, and corruption is a consequence of thinking you're going to get away with shit, not your initial, white-collar crime. You don't get into it to be corrupt. It just kind of happens because you make one shitty decision, and then, you're so far in it, we gotta keep going. So it's always incompetence more so than corruption. Brett doesn't attend the march. Last episode of the Dark Horse, he was going to go march on. If you're a mask advocate, you're an idiot. But if you're an anti-science advocate go march on the Capitol, you're a good guy. But he decided not to attend in case it got morphed into something perverse. Medical expertise. They talk about medical expertise. Brett says doctors can prescribe whatever they want. False, they cannot prescribe cannabis, they cannot prescribe psilocybin, they cannot prescribe LSD, they cannot prescribe ibogaine, they cannot prescribe DMT, they cannot prescribe base mescaline, they can't prescribe anything that isn't, again, made illegal. Again, remember, the Controlled Substance Act of 1964 is directly ratified against common law, like directly, and then just saying that is we're in inning 2, or hopefully inning like 6 or 7. I do think the pandemic's going away, but we're in extra innings with cannabis. Like, it's efficacy 100%, clearly fucking works, no known contradictions. Well, the same people who are railing against, tyranny and where's my freedom are the same exact people that will say keep cannabis away from my kid because it's not scientific. Total nonsense everywhere. And then a prescription that couldn't be filled. They talk about a prescription that couldn't be filled keeping useful medicines away, meaning with all of this being said, no useful medicine should be kept away from anybody. The CDC, the FDA should not say doctors should not prescribe medicines as a way to get people vaccinated. Absolutely fucking not. They should treat disease at any cost, at any way possible, giving all things considered. But again, same with all of the drugs I just listed that are natural and not have any sort of negative side effects. I just have the opioid epidemic. It's been a couple days since I watched this. I'm not sure what that was referenced to. Heather says, quote, the ideologues are backpedaling after saying there might be some instances when mandates are appropriate. So Heather, maybe you're the ideologue backpedaling. And again, maybe some instances where mandates are appropriate. Fat bitch, you're not a fucking legal scholar. I don't respect your scientific worthless piece of paper. We've been trained with science our whole lives. Well, where's your research, bitch? I don't give a fuck about the hunter-gatherer's guide to the 24th century. I care about proofing. Seriously. And so you can think I'm angry or mad, but this is just the level of science I actually do. And so in the same way you say, and again, this whole episode, the whole time, Heather and Brett are just they're on their high horse. They literally fucking are. But they're the trained scientists. There is more intelligence and proofing gaps between you and a person with actual mental retardation than the person you guys called God and literally me. I know people can't accept that, but it's true. And all I care about is the merits of the work. And so, you're the ideologue backpedaling. And again, we get to better quotes. But Brett says, vaccines don't stop infection, transmission, or viral load. Yes, they do all of this. Again, this is an absolute. They don't stop infection whatsoever, transmission whatsoever, or viral load whatsoever. Yes, they do. Again, it's reflected in the infection rates. It's reflected in the deaths and the hospitalizations. Versus CDC, White House saying the exact opposite. Again, I don't agree with anyone saying, extremes. Again, practically from the CDC and from the federal government, you should absolutely be pro-vaccine, pro-mask, again, any medication that would fucking work. But from an independent podcaster, just, again, epidemiologist, evolutionary biologist, speaking in the absolute when he's exactly wrong. And then he says, John Campbell's video shows people don't die from COVID, but delayed cancer diagnosis. No, people definitely die from COVID. My grandfather died from COVID. Again, then I go to Christmas and get told I'm not a scientist and just more weird shit. Scientific denial has destroyed my life, has destroyed this fucking planet, and humanity is a fucking disease. But again, delayed cancer diagnosis is more so, again, the tough people sticking it out. The people who think they're fine are going to die, and the people who are fine think they're going to die. We've already talked about that. But again, that was paraphrased from Brett Weinstein, a man on the right side of history. Brett and Heather, you guys are doing tremendous and actual detriment to this fucking world. And then random, I don't know what, again, I literally write down just any thought that pops to my head. But then Heather starts talking about something on her Substack, which I don't even know what the fuck that is. But then I just have a random question. Do all animals masturbate? Sexes versus anatomy, right? Monkeys, we got our opposable thumbs and hands, and again, I just have so many ladies, I don't need to masturbate ever. But I don't know, like, how about like elephants? Like animals is like without hands. Do you do like they just like bump up against shit or something? I don't know, random thought. Do all animals masturbate? It's a yes or no. Observational data. But now moving on, let me be sure I'm still rolling. Then Heather again gets all emphatic. They talked about, Heather said, it's strange for me to use this language, and then starts again talking about the Christian thing to do. Again, stop with the fucking Christian God shit, guys. I'm a historian. You guys can't talk about this shit. And Jesus was a fruit cup fag. God was way more scientifically consistent. But she says, then she goes on to say, masks dehumanize children. How dare they? And she shows an email. And it's literally, again, one of these Martin Kulldorff types, or again, just someone pushing back, because Heather's for the freedoms and for the humanity of the choice. Yeah! But she shows some email of someone basically saying, wearing a mask is equivalent to wearing socks. Like yes, the literally of the yes. For sure the yes. I'm doing the science so hard, Brett and Heather. But yes, masking, dehumanizing children. Again, how? What is this grave damage? And then they say it's a permanent fact that damage cannot be undone. False. I am literally probably one of the most traumatized, most certainly abused, neglected person ever because of adult behavior. Is abuse, psychological abuse, permanent? Fuck no. 0%. You paid me my money today, I would not give a fuck about a single thing that has happened in my life. Period at all. So don't speak for the damaged, Heather and Brett. Privileged ass pieces of shit. She talked about almost dying on some grad school trip. Man, I really wish you would have taken the room temperature challenge as opposed to spreading false scientific information. A lot of people have not a lot of nice things to say about you guys. I don't. I don't have any rights, any freedoms, and I can't live my life because of shit like this. So is it a permanent fact of psychological damage? No. Just no. The primitive values, this Brett started talking about the primitive values and origins of vengeance, accepting suffering, and not being apologetic. Again, behavior transference. I've been through something. As long as I feel it's been fair enough, you can go through it too. Then Heather gets all emphatic again. The efficacy of the vaccines are through the floor. The floor, again using your broken analogy, trying to be emphatic, the floor would be 0. So a vaccine with the efficacy of 0. Yeah, no, still, again, even the 1-dose Johnson & Johnson or Janssen, I'm assuming that's a wholly owned subsidiary. If you get the box, it says Janssen, not Johnson & Johnson. But it's still like 77%, and then 2-dose vaccines are 86 to 95%. Still. It's still the same data. Again, they present no data ever. They just go talk with their four friends who are also 55 and have the same insecurities. And in the same conversation, she also uses they behave like 14-year-old girls, clearly viscerally watching my video, responding and mimicking my argumentation. But, and then again, that's the vaccine efficacies, and then the masks are still 25, 50%, and 95% plus for the cloth, surgical, and N95. But the point is I just have Heather, and a litter throwing a hissy fit over being called a dumb fuck and direct protection, still no data. She's basically mad that she's being called a bad person for being a bad person, because she's a bad person. So to Brett and Heather's children, be good people. Don't listen to your parents. Listen to science. Listen to reason. And don't learn their behavior. You're going to learn their body language because you grew up around them, I understand that. But make good friends and get away from your anti-science freak show fucking parents. But she's mad because she's a bad person, and she is a bad person. I can show you an interview of people against cannabis saying, 2 old women saying, we fought our whole lives to tell cannabis was bad. But it's not my fault you lived a life spreading false shit. And again, remember, they're always coming from the place where they're the scientists, they know so many things. And they are not. Not even close. So, anything else about COVID? And then a couple talking points. School shutdowns from COVID causing self-harm and suicide. Just some rates again, like up 51% or up some amount of percent for the COVID. And again, that's isolation. COVID might be the stimulus, but it's not. If your kid kills himself, it's because they're not grown up, or they're insecure, or they're uncomfortable, or this mental health shit that doesn't exist. And again, I just don't have sympathy for that shit at all. I really just fucking don't. And it's some mix between selfishness, self-hatred, being pathetic, just giving up, and not super relevant to COVID at all. But long COVID versus vaccine injury, I see as both as, again, this manifestation of brain fog and insecurity and just being pathetic. Like long COVID, where you get your Lydia McGrews, and that was a vaccine injury, but it's the same manifestation of the psychological insecurity. People who think they have long COVID, it's the same way people who will milk a disease, who will act like their kids have a disease to get prescriptions, versus vaccine injury, people who are just, again, ideologues. Heather, this is an actual ideologist thinking vaccine injury is real. I've looked into it. No. And then Ben Shapiro says, kids do not adjust better than adults do, unless they take on their behavior. And then you got Ben anti-cannabis. Kids definitely adjust better than adults, as proven by all the adults who can't adjust to cannabis being, again, bona fide efficient, bona fide effective, bona fide medicine for like 70 years. Anything else? Oh, one more thing from Ben. I went, on one of his, he's doing his ad for Good Ranchers, which is a bed, I think it's a bed. But he said, I went exclusive with my wife pretty quickly. Ben Shapiro, weren't you a virgin when you met your wife? Coming from a super virgin? So you went exclusive with your wife pretty quick. Yeah, man. What were you doing? Just laying pipe left and right with your fucking yarmulke on? It's like, yep, I'm going to go exclusive with my wife and marry her in the next 6 weeks. But I'd let those other hoes stay to the side. My yarmulke was pulling too many bitches. So that's it for the COVID talking points. Now just some random shit. A dog was saved by a drone and a sausage. I don't know, I thought it was very inspiring. It made lots of the news stations. The dog was lost. Somebody put a hot dog on it and just guided the dog out from being lost. I thought that was fun. Biden calls a reporter a stupid son of a bitch. Good. Reporters should be able to call the president stupid as fuck. The president should be able to call the reporters stupid as fuck. The point of politics isn't some high-flying, respect, egotistical shit. Just be level-headed, have open conversations. So I thought that was fun and good. And again, I'm not a Biden supporter. I'm not a political supporter of any kind. I did get a Tinder date, or not a date, excuse me. Whoa. I got a Tinder match. Her name was Cecilia. She was 28 or 26, pretty cute. Looked like an Asian American chick. I had messaged her, hey, exclamation mark, what's something interesting that you like doing? Did not get a response in 24 hours, and then I unmatched her. So that was my closest attempt at a date in the past, probably, first Tinder match in probably 3-4 months. And I swiped every single day. So, again, I'm not platinum anymore. I gave up after a year and a half of platinum, no dates. So, I saw the term sneaky link in several Tinder profiles, and there's a song by DaBaby called Sneaky Link Anthem. I think I ordered a gavel and a judge's robe for some more costumes, but I would declare this, I would ban this terminology, sneaky link. It's like yeet. It's like one of the worst of all of the slang words I've heard in a long time. Sneaky link gives me AIDS. And last point of talking, I don't know, the Winter X Games are coming up, and Winter Olympics. When the Winter Olympics are upcoming, I was just watching the X Games. Are there physical limits to skiing and snowboarding? I'm sure there are. Like how many, I think the most they were doing right now are 1800s on like the big air competition. But I would think there's got to be some sort of geometric limit, mass proportion of how many times a human being can rotate at 30 feet in the air with this amount of speed or momentum. And I'm sure that's a question pretty much everyone's asked themselves, having watching skateboarding, Winter X Games, Summer X Games, Winter Olympics, Summer Olympics. For skills like that or sports like that, there's going to be some sort of limit to how fast you can go or how many spins you can do. Maybe you can squeak out a 1900 or 2000 rotations, degrees of rotation, but not like 10,000. So what's the limit there? I don't know. Just thought. I'm sure everyone's had that's watched any of these things. What's my favorite ones these are the X Games, Winter Olympics. I like hockey and I like again the skiing and snowboarding stuff. Slopestyle, big air, super pipe, and moguls and tricks. Not sure what the moguls and tricks is, just when you go down the moguls and you have the really steep jumps in between. I don't know. I like all of them. Probably like slope style the absolute best. Probably followed by big air, then the half pipe, then the moguls and tricks. I also like the knuckle huck event, which I think is really fun. They just try to do a jam session, just jump off, instead of going off the jump, do a trick off the lip of the landing. So that's what I've been watching, that's what I've been doing, and I really wanted to talk about some COVID stuff today. So that's what we got for today, about done here, and looking forward to the Winter Olympics as well. So I hope you learned something. I hope these goofballs, and again, flatly just terrible human beings, stop spreading false scientific information. I hope I get actual freedoms and constitutional rights at some point before the age of like 35. And so again, all these people that want to get back to normal and want their freedoms and life back, I've again yet to this minute of this day started my life. So maybe by 35, honestly, probably fucking not. So thank you for watching Language, Litigation, and Integration Part 87. Immunity, durability, get your vaccines, wear your mask, and you do have a little bonus added protection if you do get Omicron on top of that. So make reasonable decisions, don't be reckless, and be a decent fucking person. Thanks for watching, see you next time.